The unexpected Russian-Ukraine war in Europe disrupted all the supply chain and sparked shortages of everything from wheat to barley, edible oils, and fertilizers also. So, however, the more profound long-term concern is climate change as well as the impacts that will affect crops and food self-sufficiency as the temperatures rises. The government also understands that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, people's spending power has fallen acutely, and for some, hunger is an ever-growing distress. Hence, the government has also extended the free ration scheme for 6 months till end of September 2022. Looking at the large canvas, India as the third biggest greenhouse gas emitter and one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, has a serious interest in making economic growth less carbon intensive. So, on this situation, a very big question rises in front of us, that how is climate change related to food security? So, climate change and food system interlinks. The climate crisis impacts all parts of the global food system from production to consumption. It destroys land and crops, kills livestock, depletes fisheries and cuts off transport to market, which further impacts food production. So, like in this regard, the ability of diversity, access and safety at the same time food systems also impact the environment and are a driver of climate change. So, like estimates show that the food sector emits around 30% of the world's greenhouse gases. Global issue, if I am talking about that, along with India and Pakistan, many other countries are having extreme heat events. France experienced record temperatures of 30 to 35 degrees Celsius on several days in May 2022. Also, like rainfalls was down by a third from normal, and this would impact winter cereals like wheat and barley. So, decline in grain output, other parts of the world too, like Canada and the US, have experienced unusually dry, warm weather over the last 2-3 years. So, what is the current situation of climate change and food security? So, the Indian Meteorological Department, it had declared March 2022 the hottest month since a record keeping began 122 years ago. Consistently above average temperature, according to research, temperatures were consistently rising 3 degrees Celsius to 8 degrees Celsius above average, breaking many decadal and some all-time records in several parts of the country. India experienced around 300 forest fires near the month of April 2022. It also offered some predictions about the future heat waves in the subcontinent. Extreme weather and its impact. So, extreme weather events that were once supposed to occur once in 100 years are now 30 times more likely than before, or you can say in between every 3 to 5 years. Even also in March 2022 was one of the driest recorded months, and 2022 April's rainfall was also way below normal in North India's crop growing regions. In parts of Kerala, unseasonal rains forced cultivators to wade through water field to harvest paddy, which result in low quality crops. That was the result actually. So overseas sales ban, the extreme heat wave coupled with the extremely low rainfall affected the growth of the wheat in much of India's grain basket of Punjab, Haryana and western Rajasthan also. Even in Uttar Pradesh also. So crop yields are down by 20% and that led to the government withdrawing its offer to feed the world as the spot prices for export wheat had risen as much as 60%, a month on month, but eased after the government overseas sales ban of wheat. On this situation, a very big question is in our mind that what is the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war on food security? As we can see the situation in Ukraine. So like price inflation, if I'm talking about, a crucial portion of the world's wheat, corn and barley is trapped in Russia and Ukraine because of war. While an even larger portion of the world fertilizers is stuck and in Russia and Belarus also. So the result is that global food and fertilizers price are rising. We can see it. So since the innovation wheat prices have increased by 21%, barley by 33%, and some fertilizers maybe I think 40%, that's a big rise actually. Impact on fertilizers market, sanction have also hit Russia closest. So Ali Belarus, a leading producer of potash based fertilizer, critical for many major crops including soybeans and corn. So according to a report, the direct impact of the war on fertilizer market will first be felt in the food production season in India and Brazil. So surge in fuel prices. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is responsible for rising fuel prices because supply chain, particularly those of crude oil, have been disrupted, which raises even more pressure on the already stressed global supplies and low storage level around the world. How can we ensure food security amid changing climate? How can we ensure? Like technology development. So government can develop new seeds and improve the technology which will help to fix the problem of grain storage, improve irrigation coverage, make more effective use of fertilizers and manage soil better. It's also required to make agriculture economical, viable and profitable. Building resilience for the poor. So like in this regard, adaptation and resilience building for poor and vulnerable communities are critical for food security. Considering the fact that the adverse impact of climate extremes on people and nature will continue to increase with rising temperatures, there is a strong emphasis on the urgency of scaling up action and support in the field of, we can see, in a finance capacity building and technology transfer to enhance adaptive capacity, strengthen resilience and reduce vulnerability to climate change in line with the best available science. Sustainable food system, we need to understand this. So sustainability has to be achieved in production, value chains and consumptions. So climate resilient cropping patterns have to be promoted. Instead of giving input subsidies, cash transfer can be given to farmers for sustainable agriculture. Multi-pronged, in a multi-pronged approach for tackling climate hunger crisis. So in this creating resilient livelihood and food security solution by protecting and improving the livelihood of vulnerable communities. Promoting a resilient agriculture sector by creating sustainable opportunities, access to finance, and innovation for smallholder farmers with climate information and preparedness. Building capacity and knowledge of civil society and governments for vulnerability analysis to increase food security by addressing the link between food security and climate risk. In this regard, the role of India, we need to understand this. If we're talking in the context of India, that India has a huge role to play with its ongoing and now substantial policy work at the national and state levels. It has to transform its food systems to make them more inclusive and sustainable for higher farm incomes and nutrition security. Diversification of cropping patterns towards millets, pulses, oilseeds and horticulture is needed for more equal distribution of water and sustainable and climate resilient agriculture. So adoption finance the recent pledges made by the developed countries on enhancing climate finance. To support adoption in developing countries is a welcome gesture. However, the current climate finance for adoption and base of stakeholders remains insufficient to respond to worsening climate change impacts. So in multilateral developments bank, other financial institution and the private sector shall enhance finance mobilization to deliver the scale of resources it's needed to achieve climate plans, particularly for adaptation. So after this we need to conclude this. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion basically is this, that with progress made on renewable installation, the adoption of electric vehicles and turning India into a green energy powerhouse, the Indian government is making a start. At the same time, it is also an urgent need to lift millions out of poverty, and it is mandatory to address this situation now, as declining agriculture productivity will result in higher food prices and will mean more economic hardships. Thanks for watching.